In a tomb deep underground, archaeologists carefully remove the lid from an ancient stone sarcophagus. Inside lie the mummified remains of an Egyptian priest, hidden for the past 2,500 years.
Oh my God. This is beautiful.
On closer inspection, though, the mummy isn't what it seems.
No way.
And the investigation takes a surprise turn.
There is something quite mind-blowing.
Forcing the team to question all that it's found so far.
I might be wrong, but I would be very surprised if there is no more surprises in this complex.
Inside the ancient cemetery of Sakara, renowned Egyptologist Dr. Ramadan Hussein and his team of archaeologists are excavating a remarkable new site.
When I started archaeology, I never thought I would be discovering something on that magnitude.
Extensive 3D scans reveal a unique ancient Egyptian funeral complex dating from around 600 BC, where the dead were brought to be mummified and buried in an assortment of chambers deep underground.
This tomb complex dates to the 26th dynasty, and that's about 700 years after Tutankhamun and about 600 years before Cleopatra and the end of Egyptian history as we knew it. This time period is interesting because this is when Egypt had had a huge renaissance in religion and burial ideas. So this find is really a snapshot in time and crucial to our understanding of mummification.
Today, Ramadan and his team are investigating a pair of stone sarcophagi. They lie in a small chamber, almost 100 feet below the surface.
We have two sealed sarcophagi. One in what we call anthropoid sarcophagus. It means it takes the human form, and another one that is a rectangular sarcophagus.
What makes them so special is that unlike the other sarcophagi in this complex, they're both inscribed with text.
Once we discovered this writing, we understood how valuable this is. So we have put protective paper here. This is our means of communication with the ancients.
The inscriptions are carved on one sarcophagus and painted on the other. And they provide fascinating clues about the people buried inside.
For me, it is a moment that I can read the minds of these two persons to be able to know what they wanted to convey us, what they wanted to tell us.
The ancient Egyptians believed that remembering the name of the deceased by writing it down would lead to their immortality. And the text on the caskets reveals a pair of male names, Chanam and Yiput. But the text also contains another vital piece of information, their jobs. And interestingly, they both match.
So far, from the text material we have collected, we have two priests. This is Chanam. Right behind me here is another priest, and his name is Yiput.
While this is priceless information, it raises an important question. Why are these two priests here? Is it purely by chance that they share the same tomb? Or could they be, in some way, connected?
That is pretty much the mystery. Why do you have two priests right next to one another? This is a question to be answered when we lift up this lid.
To learn more about the two priests, Ramadan must open up the sarcophagi and investigate their contents in forensic detail. Led by their foreman, Ammar, the team is starting with the rectangular sarcophagus of Chanamite. The first task is to break open the thick layer of mortar running round the edge of the lid. Intended as a seal to deter grave robbers, its presence can mean only one thing.
This sarcophagus is 2,600 years old, and it hasn't been touched since Chanamite was buried inside it. This is a three-man job, so we'll see how successful this is going to be. It is a very intense moment for me. What is inside this sarcophagus? It seems to be working.
Now the casket is partway open. Ramadan uses an inspection camera to take a preliminary peek.
This is unbelievable.
What it reveals is like nothing else from the complex.
Glittering stuff.
A 2,600-year-old mummy, adorned from head to toe in an elaborate beaded burial shroud. And amazingly, still in one piece.
This beautiful beaded net. It is so elegant. This is so beautiful. Not as pristine as you would see it in museums, but this is a mummy that carries the dust and aging of 2,600 years. This is a remarkably decorated mummy. This definitely stands out as one of the most remarkable sarcophagus that I've ever opened. I have a job to bring Chanam back to life. We want his story to be told. And I think I'm going to tell the story of Chanam from now until I die. I have so much to do.
Beneath the ancient pyramids of Sakara, the task of opening Chanamite's stone sarcophagus is well underway. After glimpsing a beaded shroud lying on Chanamite's mummy, project director Ramadan is keen to learn more about this mysterious priest.
Ammar and his team just lifted up the lid. It's a difficult job. It's a lot of labor, a lot of sweat. Before we roll it out, we need to make sure that nothing will fall on this beautiful mummy. So we're spreading a cloth underneath the lid. Line out. Ammar, we're good to go.
The lid, carved from solid limestone, weighs almost 2,000 pounds. And the team will slide it out on steel rollers.
When you move a large piece of stone like this lid, you don't want this stone to smash somebody's bones. That's first. Second is not to damage and destroy any object inside the sarcophagus. So those are the two main concerns: the safety of the living and also the safety of the dead. Now, I think we're gonna have a full look at the mummy of Chanam. Oh my God, it's just unbelievable. It is as if actually it was made yesterday. This is beautiful.
Made from hundreds of glazed clay beads, Chanamit's perfectly preserved burial shroud was intended to protect him in the afterlife. Its quality and craftsmanship are a clear sign that Chanamit was a wealthy individual.
This is the work of an artist that was done 2,600 years ago. And now we're getting a first look at it, a bit by bit. The collar is coming out. It's so beautiful, also beaded right here. The head of the mummy. It's still wrapped. You can see his eyes, and the nose, and the eyebrows, and even the mouth drawn on these linen bandages. This is one of the most beautiful mummies I have ever seen in my life. What is so amazing is the preservation of the beaded net and the necklace after 2,600 years. It's unbelievable. It's just beautiful. But now, the question that is on my mind: who is this person to have deserved such an elaborate burial?
To shed light on why a priest like Chanamit was able to afford such luxuries, project consultant Salima Ikram has come to one of the most iconic sites in all of Egypt. The historic city of Luxor on the banks of the River Nile. Among the many nearby tombs is a vast mausoleum belonging to a priest called Pariamanopet.
It was always in ancient Egypt good to be a priest because, of course, religion was of the utmost importance, and also you enter into this hierarchy of the temples and the religion, and so it's sort of like a brotherhood.
For most priests, serving one of the many Egyptian gods or goddesses was a full-time job. But for an elite few, like Pariamanopet, it was a career that brought wealth and status.
One of the most striking things about Pariamanopet's tomb is the fact that it is huge. It's the largest non-royal tomb in all of Luxor. The workmanship is exquisite and it's lavishly decorated, and it would originally have been painted, and you can still see some of the vestiges of paint, which means that he must have been one of the richest and most influential men when he died.
Almost every wall of this enormous 22-room tomb is covered in either paintings or inscriptions. And they contain important information about Pariamanopet's life, including how he was able to amass such wealth.
Priests were very important in Egyptian society, and Pediaminope here, you can see, was a priest, a lector priest, someone who reads. But he was also a royal scribe, he was known to the king, was a courtier, and he, like many other priests, had lots of jobs. So priests weren't just religious beings. They were political, they were industrial, some of them were even in the military. They really had their fingers in all kinds of pies. And so you wind up with people who have enormous wealth that they can amass from a huge number of different sources.
So could Chanamit's elaborate burial be a clue to the sort of life he led as a priest? Ramadan is hoping to find some answers in the painted text on his sarcophagus, now that its protective covering is being removed.
Text is so valuable for every archaeologist. It is that joy to be able to read the minds of the ancients. What we're reading here is, if we can draw any analogy, an identification card of this person. And right here, for example, we see the name of the deceased, Chanam, which literally means the little child of the cat. The worship of the cat among Egyptians was very, very common, and it was notably common among a segment of the Egyptian society that is mostly Libyan immigrant. So the name Chanam, could that be an indication that we're dealing with a Libyan descent of some sort?
And Chanamit's heritage isn't all that's contained in the inscription.
So working backwards, we see some of his priestly titles. Here, for example, we could see that he is a priest of the goddess Sekhmet and the goddess Isis, two of the most important goddesses in the ancient Egyptian pantheon. Then we continue to see more of his priestly titles.
In other words, just like the priest Padiamanopet, Chanamit held more than one position.
We're talking about somebody who had evidently a long career as a priest. This must be somebody who accumulated a certain kind of wealth.
So what brought such a distinguished priest here to Sakara?
This burial chamber has already given us a lot to think about.
And how, if at all, is Chanamit connected to Yiput, the other priest buried in the chamber? Inside the priest's burial chamber, Ramadan's team is preparing to remove Chanamit's mummy from the sarcophagus so they can examine it for more clues.
A little bit up, a little bit to the right.
As there's a chance of damaging the mummy, the project's digital team is first creating a perfect copy using a technique called photogrammetry.
So, first of all, I took like thousands of pictures of this mummy, and we can put all these pictures then in a software.
And then the computers figures out what we have done with all the pictures and creates out of all pictures a 3D model.
And it's a complete new approach understanding archaeological sites like this.
Especially when they're underground.
The 3D map of the tomb complex now contains Chanamit's open sarcophagus. And the real beauty of this technique is that it records each stage of the excavation, allowing the team to go back and re-examine key details, like the faded text on Chanamit's sarcophagus, where Ramadan has spotted a mysterious name.
We're looking now at the titles of Chanamit, connecting him to several gods and goddesses from ancient Egypt, very prominent ones. But what is so intriguing here is that he's a priest of a goddess, a serpent goddess. Her name is Nuches. with this circle, then a rectangular below it, then a bolt, and at the end, a serpent. When I first saw the name New Chess, I had trouble reading it because we don't see that name a lot. It sounds really very strange.
While this latest discovery is an important development, it now leaves Ramadan with a new set of questions. Who was this obscure serpent goddess? And why was a priest of some of the most important deities in Egypt in her service? In search of clues, project consultant Salima is once more in the city of Luxor.
We're here at Luxor Temple, which is one of the most important temples in this area because it contains lists of gods and goddesses. And if we're in search of a particular deity, this would be the place to go.
Among the many hieroglyphs covering the temple walls is what's brought her here. A tiny but familiar-looking inscription.
And it's right up here, where you've got that circle up there, the cross in it. And beneath that, there's a funny hook and this lovely snake.
One of the very few mentions of Nut Shayez to be found anywhere in Egypt.
And in fact, this is the first time her name occurs ever.
What's significant is the inscription's location. Inside a separate chapel within the temple, dedicated to one of the most eminent of all Egyptian deities, the great goddess Mut.
Mut was so important because she was the consort of the god Amun, king of the gods. So basically, she's queen of the gods, and Mut is also the great mother goddess. And in fact, the word for mother in Egyptian is Mut. And she was in charge of the fertility of the land, the people, the herds, and a great protector of women.
Mut was so revered by the ancient Egyptians that they depicted her in many different ways. As the mother of the pharaoh, as a powerful ruler, even as a lioness.
And so here, in this chapel, we have Mut in all of her different guises and all of her different aspects.
And one of Mut's other lesser-known guises was the serpent-like Nut Shayez.
Here you see that Nut Shayez is really just an aspect of the goddess Mut, and an aspect in serpent form, like you can see from her name. She's not very significant, it would seem. And there are only a handful of mentions of this very elusive mythological figure that we have throughout Egyptian history. Now, 600 years later, at Sakara, in the tomb of Chanam, it's a different story, because Chanam is a priest of the goddess Nut Shayez, and this means suddenly Nut Shayez is an independent entity. Suddenly, she becomes somebody.
A fully fledged goddess in her own right. And what's remarkable is that Chanam wasn't alone in worshipping this new deity. In a small tomb next to the priest's chamber, Ramadan and his team have made an extraordinary discovery. A mummy wearing a priceless gilded silver burial mask, the first found in Egypt for almost a century. One of the fascinating things about this find is that the text on the coffin reveals that its owner was a priest, just like Chanam, and that he too worshipped the serpent goddess Nut Shayez. Which means that Nut Shayez must have become a very significant goddess indeed.
all of a sudden in our complex here, we have two individuals that connecting themselves to the goddess Nut, being priests of this goddess. This is definitely a revolution in what we know about this goddess. We're hoping for more information about her.
In light of the discovery that Chanam was a follower of the obscure serpent goddess Nut, Ramadan is keen to find out more about the other priest from Chanam's tomb.
Today is going to be a very interesting day because our attention turns to the second sarcophagus in the burial chamber that we've been working in, and now it's the time to learn more about Yiput.
He is hoping that a closer inspection of Yiput's casket might reveal why the two priests share the same tomb.
The sarcophagus of Yiput stands out in this complex because it is the only anthropoid sarcophagus, a human form sarcophagus. And you could see the fingerprint of the person who applied this mortar in the process of sealing the lid.
Anthropoid sarcophagi were intended to portray an ideal of Egyptian beauty. And on Yiput's, Ramadan spots an intriguing detail.
Interestingly, you could see the face here. That very triangle-shaped nose, this very pointed, very sharp nose, and that very thin lips, it is not Egyptian facial features. It looks to me like possibly a foreign person. And the sarcophagus is inscribed, giving us the name of the person who's buried inside Yiput. It's very interesting because it doesn't sound like an Egyptian name. It does sound a foreign name, particularly Libyan name. Something similar to what we've seen with Chanam.
If Ramadan is right, and both Chanam and Yiput were of Libyan descent, then could that explain why they share the same tomb? Remarkably, the links don't stop there, because the inscriptions on Yiput's sarcophagus also reveal the gods whom he served, and they include a now familiar name. On the foot of Yiput's casket is the telltale symbol of a serpent. The same goddess, Nut, Ramadan saw on Chanam's sarcophagus, and the coffin of the priest with the silver mask.
There are strong similarities and connections between these two persons. One is both of them were priests. Second, they served the same goddess, Nut. Third, both of them possibly Libyans, possibly Libyan immigrants who settled in Egypt.
دكتور حط الأرض. حط الاثنين ماشي.
In the search for more evidence, the team's next step is to look inside Yiput's sarcophagus.
إيه لا. إيه لا. الله ينور. كمان واحدة.
عمار، في مساحة قد إيه؟
في 3 سم يا دكتور. هنزل برضه هيجي معايا. هاخد قدام ده. طيب. على الحبيب. إيه أهو. الله ينور.
I know.
كمان واحد. الله ينور. الله ينور.
We are in a very tight space.
خش يا عم حمد. على الحبيب خش.
And we have to move this human-sized lid.
إيه لا. الله ينور.
They have to maneuver, turn around, and make sure nothing falls inside the sarcophagus that could damage the mummy.
إيه لا.
الله ينور.
كمان واحدة.
عمار،
خفش يا دكتور.
عمار،
خفش يا دكتور.
عشان ما يجريش تحت على رجل عم حمدي كده ومحمد.
لا خفش يا دكتور، ما انا معتل من هنا. ايه ده اهو. الله ينور يا عم حمدي. ايه ده اهو. كمان واحدة. ايه ده اهو. الله ينور. ايه ده اهو.
Hold on. استنى يا عمار، استنى يا عمار. عمار، عمار، خدوا نفسكم.
While the team has a rest, Ramadan takes a quick look inside Yiput's sarcophagus.
This is beautiful. What we have here is a mummy similar to Chanam's mummy. Similar mummification technique for the two of them. It's very interesting. We see a lot of beads at the feet of this mummy. Looks like they were put around the mummy, not really threaded. And this is something that I haven't seen before. So we need to look closely to the face and the body of Yiput.
الحبيب يلا ايه لا خلي بالك خلي بالك تمام يا باي ما تخافش
الخشبة جريت الخشبة جريت دي جريت معاه
طيب ايه لا الله ينور ها الله ينور يلا هيك خلي بالك اللهم صل عليك يا خالد انت بروح بالحرب لا احنا فصلنا احنا الله حبيبي.
Finally, for the first time in 2,600 years, Yiput's mummy is fully revealed.
That very beautifully wrapped mummy coated with this black bitumen. You could see the old bandage here, the mummy wrappings right here.
Looking closer, Ramadan tries to make sense of the shape of the body beneath the mummy wrappings. And he spies something totally unexpected.
There is something quite mind-blowing. Looking at the sarcophagus of Yiput and the text and his name that is written right here, and the title, being a priest of New Chess, all speaks to me as a man. But now looking at the mummy, I'm seeing something different. You could see a silhouette of that left arm over the chest, and then another protrusion here, possibly the right shoulder, going all the way down along the body. So what we have here is the left arm crossed over the chest, while the right arm extended along the body and possibly reaching the pelvic area. This is a position that is restricted to women of high status.
In other words, what the arm position suggests is that instead of being a priest of Nut Shayez, Yiput may, in fact, have been a priestess.
All these months I'm talking about Yiput as a man, and all of a sudden I have a mummy with a hand on arm position that is for a woman. I might be wrong, but I would be very surprised if there is no more surprises in this complex. Now we need to have this question answered and the identification of the sex of this mummy confirmed by X-ray.
After the shock discovery that the priest Yiput may in fact be a woman, Ramadan is keen to reinvestigate the sex of another of the priests from the complex, the priest with the gilded silver mask.
You're thinking it's male?
Yeah, but now we might have a very big surprise in terms of the sex of this mummy.
Now that the painted wooden coffin has been removed, project consultant Salima is able to identify a crucial telltale feature.
I mean, certainly I can see from the brow, it's quite sharp. That's certainly a female trait. It's quite extraordinary.
Just as revealing is the mummy's crossed arm position.
When you have one arm crossed over your breast and one along your side, that poses something that is only seen with female mummies. And so the fact that this body has the same pose would really argue, in addition to all of the physical characteristics on the skeleton, that this is a woman.
This is a surprise.
The potential discovery of a second priestess is a fascinating development.
Having priestesses buried here is significant because it tells us what ancient Egyptian women were like and what their social status was. They had the same social economic class, they had the same level of wealth, the same level of prestige and privilege. And really, it emphasizes the point that in ancient Egypt, more than any other ancient culture, women had many more rights and were far more equal to men than elsewhere.
To be sure of the priest's sex, though, what Ramadan needs is hard evidence. So he's arranged for the mummies to be X-rayed. Starting with the priest Chanam.
It's completely decayed, so I'm trying to lift the mummy one piece, but I think it's very hard.
Held together by a protective gauze.
اتنين تلاتة.
Okay, ارفع.
ارفع ارفع.
The fragile mummy is carefully lifted out.
انزل يا محمد. ارفع فوق كمان، ارفع فوق كمان. برافو برافو برافو. كمان سنة ودخله. Okay. Yes, good work. Yeah, we get the mummy one piece.
As the remains are too delicate to be hoisted to the surface, the team has created an X-ray lab underground.
It is okay because the bones is collected together or near together, so we can make an X-ray. It will be a good result for us.
Radiologist Professor Sahar Salim will X-ray the mummy in stages.
Okay, clear, please.
Starting with the head.
Okay, shoot. Wow. Unfortunately, this doesn't look good.
It's disappointing news.
This doesn't look good at all. The skull is so scrambled.
Chanamit's skull is too damaged to glean any information from it.
Unfortunately, I cannot tell whether this is a man or a woman. So we'll go to the other clues to determine the sex. I'm counting now on the pelvis.
Female pelvises are usually wider and rounder than a male's,
Shoot.
making them a reliable indicator of sex.
It is bad news.
Unfortunately, the pelvis is totally destroyed. You cannot see any recognizable part of the hip.
Unable to tell Chanamit's sex, the team switches to Yiput, the priest with the male name, but the female-looking mummy.
Yiput is a mummy that keeps me thinking all the time. The name is for a man. The title is for a priest. But we're still really not sure whether Yiput is a man or a woman.
A 100 feet beneath the desert, inside a makeshift lab, radiologist Sahar Salim is getting ready to X-ray the 2,500-year-old mummy of Yiput, the priest.
Where, please?
She's hoping the scans will confirm whether Yiput's skeleton is male or female.
Okay. I'll do my best, though. I feel responsible for making everybody happy.
And the first thing to check is the arm position.
When we opened the sarcophagus of Yiput, Dr. Ramadan was suspicious about the position of the arm. Now we are going to X-ray this mummy and figure out the real position of the arm.
Okay, ready? Shoot.
The first X-rays confirmed the team's initial suspicions.
Okay, good. If you put arm position, the crossing of the left arm over the chest, it looks like the burial of a woman. It is very clear.
Further scans reveal other specific clues.
Shoot. The skull is not really in a good condition, but this bone beneath the ear, it is smooth, and the roundness of the skull, I have this feeling that this could be a woman. This pelvis. The pelvis also is not that intact, but there is a big round cavity just towards the female. Also, the blades of the iliac region, they are more flat. This is also with a woman.
The X-ray is telling me that Yaput is a woman, not a man. My journey in understanding Yaput is like a roller coaster of understanding. You go up one point and then all of a sudden you drop down. This is what makes archaeology so interesting.
And while there's no evidence to suggest that Chanam was a woman, what the team can be sure of is that the two priests, Yaput and Chanam, shared a similar status and background.
This chamber presented us with a trove of information in the form of two beautiful sarcophagi inscribed for two persons. Their names alone says something about them being Libyans, immigrants who lived in Egypt and become completely Egyptianized.
Even more significant is the goddess these two Libyans, along with the priestess and the silver mask, worshipped.
Shaft K24 has the largest number of mentions of the goddess Nuches in one place in the entire country of Egypt. I think we discovered a new cult in ancient Egypt, the cult of a goddess we didn't know much about, with priests and priestesses who served her.
And to Ramadan, a new cult suggests something more.
Did Nuches have her own shrine in the immediate vicinity of Shaft K24, or a temple with economic revenues that allows the priesthood to amass such wealth that is reflected in the richness of their burials?
It's questions like this that are the reason why the team is still digging.
Ammar, سويمك investigate.
And if the discoveries so far are anything to go by, then there will surely be more secrets to uncover.
The only reason to do Egyptology is because you enjoy it, and you love it, and you love the ancient Egyptians. You really want to find out what they were doing, what they were thinking, how they were functioning. It is also lovely because you realize they might have lived 3,000, 2,000 years ago, but there's very little difference between them and us.
Our mission here, what we're doing is looking for information and rewriting the story of every individual we discover here. And we're still going to gather more of it. This is for us a lifelong research project.